Today we are going to talk about what the dew point actually is, as well as humidity. We're going to talk about which one of those two runners should actually pay attention to, how both affect your pace and your effort, and how you can adjust your training when those are factors.
This is literally gold, because when athletes have really hard days, a lot of times in the summer, they're looking at the temperature and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that sucked. I should be better at 75 degrees than this, right? But what they're not taking into account is why humidity and dew point can make things a lot harder if they are in certain ranges, which is completely separate from the temperature itself.
Yeah, our athletes have been dealing with this for years, but I think we're dealing with it a lot this summer. And it's something that, unfortunately, because of the way the world is, this is something that is going to be a factor for runners forever into the future, especially depending on where you live. I feel like our Texas runners and Florida runners,
They might be better at this than us.
yeah, absolutely. So we got some tips for you coming up here. All right, so when you are running, your body is constantly trying to cool itself. So when you run, your muscles are generating heat. And I actually read a study that said 25% of your effort when you're running is actually moving you forward. The rest of it is your body trying to cool itself.
Yeah, which that explains why heat feels so hard.
Yeah, so your body primarily does that by sweating. But what a lot of runners don't realize is that if your sweat can't evaporate, then you will not get cool.
And you keep sweating.
Exactly. Exactly.
So when sweat evaporates off your skin, it actually carries the heat away from your body, right? This is why when you run in the desert, it's crazy because you are sweating, but it's so dry that you're getting it whisked off right away. But if your sweat is simply dripping off your arms and soaking in your shirt and your hair and everywhere else, you're just losing water, but you're not getting cool, right? You're just overproducing sweat.
So that means that your body has to work a lot harder to stay cool, and that increases your heat stress and it reduces your endurance performance because your body is just trying to manage its heat.
And let's be real, this is an environmental thing. And this is where, especially in this phase of the season, where we are building, week on week, and we have cutback weeks too. Don't at me. Most athletes think, oh, I should be hitting my stride. There is a very heavy environmental factor in this particular summer, in most summers, that is making the fitness really hard to see because you have a reduced endurance performance while you're training. It doesn't mean there aren't benefits. There are, but in the moment, you're going to feel like shit.
Yeah, and this is not a fitness issue,
right? But you internalize it and you think, God, I guess I don't feel good. I guess it's not working. I'm not able to do this. Right. It's like, well, no, you're not able to do that because of an external factor, not an internal factor.
And not only that, it's not a fitness issue, it's also not something that you can truly acclimate to.
Yeah.
So heat, humidity, and the dew point specifically, which we'll talk about in a moment, will always impact your pace.
Yeah, and they'll impact everyone's pace.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what exactly is humidity, right? When we talk about this, I feel like, you always hear it on Weather Report, but what actually is it? It is simply a measure of how much water vapor is in the air, which it always kind of exists in varying amounts, but it's always going to be, for us here in Chicago at least, much higher in the summer and much less and much drier in the winter. The number most weather apps display is called relative humidity. And that tells us how full the air is with moisture compared to the maximum amount it can hold to that temperature, right? So warmer can hold, as you might imagine, much more moisture than cold air. Also why summer tends to be much more humid than cooler months. So a cool morning with 95% humidity can actually feel really good for running, right? Because it's relative to the maximum, which is the maximum in cold is less. While an afternoon with only 55% humidity can feel miserable. That's why humidity by itself, when we're talking about it on its own, it doesn't really tell you very much from a running or athletic stance.
So that's what humidity is. What is dew point? So dew point is the weather number that runners really should be paying attention to. This is the temperature at which the air would be completely saturated with, like water would condense into dew. So while humidity tells you the water relative to the temperature, this doesn't change because the temperature changes. The higher the dew point, the harder it is for your sweat to evaporate. And that's, if your sweat can't evaporate, then your body can't cool itself, and then your heart rate spikes and your effort seems like it's like greater, and you are not running as efficiently as you could. So the dew point is why 2 days with exactly the same temperature can feel like totally different runs.
I tend to know that the dew point is crazy when I come up on our runners, especially not so much in a speed run, because I feel like I see them enough where like I kind of know what's happening. But if I haven't seen a group and then I see them a few miles later and I don't know if they have jumped in the lake or not, and chances are they haven't, they are that wet, I'm like, oh boy, dew point city. Dew point city, they're sweating a lot. Practical dew point guide, right? How can we think of these things? Everyone, just so you know, adapts to heat differently. I have Henry the Heat Monster. Although I feel like this has been such a harsh start. I feel like Henry is getting beat down extra early in the season. Usually it's like September that I've beat him down, but now here we are, not even August. There is not a universal scientific chart that predicts exactly how every single runner will respond. But coaches have used some practical ranges for a while because they do line up with what most runners generally experience. So here are the big sweeping ones. Below 55 degrees, we know this. It's good pug weather, right? So it's good running weather. When you see that the dew point is less than 55 degrees, that is excellent running weather. That's great. Your system is able to cool. You're able to, efficiently operate and perhaps see those endurance performances at their peak.
Yeah, from 55 to 60 degrees is still pretty comfortable for most runners. And then 60 to 65 is when we start to notice some of those effects. It feels just a little bit harder.
After that 65-degree dew point, things start to get a little bit gnarly. 65 to 70, most runners are going to notice a significant increase in effort and heart rate. So you will absolutely see that happening.
70 to 75 is very challenging conditions, and we should all expect our paces, regardless of what our target pace is, it is going to be slower.
And above 75, you guessed it, this is extreme. So at this point, your goal is really going to be staying safe, trying to just exist and do the mileage, and not chasing, for sure, a particularly intense pace or prescriptive workout.
All right, so how should you adjust your runs when you see that the dew point is high? The truth is there's no perfect answer. Your fitness, your heat acclimation, and time with Henry the Heat Monster. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Harry's his brother. Maybe that's your issue.
Maybe that's mine.
That's yours.
Your hydration, the amount of sunshine, so like whether you're in the shade or the sun, and even the wind can all influence how much humidity affects you. But there is kind of a good starting point for your easy runs. We've got dew point conditions that are in that sort of excellent and comfortable range. We can either hold our normal pace, so this is the below 55, or 55 to 60, maybe up to 2% slower. It's going to be a very, very slight adjustment and just a little bit slower than what you would typically be able to do.
Beyond that, we've got 60 to 65% of dew point that is going to be considered slightly humid, and you're looking 1 to 3% slower. If you're not as great in heat and humidity, then you're going to hang out at the higher end of that range from an adjustability standpoint.
65 to 70 degrees is going to be noticeably challenging, and this is where we're literally looking at 3 to 6% slower. And I think that surprises a lot of people to go that much. And these are percentages. It's not as easy for us to say, oh, just expect to go 20 seconds slower, because if you're a faster runner, 6% is going to be a different number than if your paces are nearing maybe 10, 11, 12-minute miles. That's more time. 6% of that is going to be more time.
And then 70 to 75%, you guessed it, that's considered very humid. That is going to be 5 to 8% slower. So yeah, that's right. It just keeps growing.
So as an example, this morning's run, 72 dew point. Each individual was able to make the call for themselves, but I gave them a range, 5 to 8%, and gave them the numbers. Anywhere in there was their target. And the truth is that even that was really hard because, like you said, they were, they looked like they jumped in the lake.
Yeah.
And the sweat wasn't evaporating, it wasn't cooling, which makes it just that much more difficult.
And then above 75 degrees of dew point, as we said before, this one's considered extreme humidity. So you're looking to scale 8 to 12% slower, or simply just run by effort. Like if that still feels crappy, just run by effort. My asterisk to all of this too is that it is aggregate. So, we had a really rough run on Saturday, and it was a long run in the second of 3 build weeks. So it's supposed to feel harder for sure. But we've also been running in heat now for weeks. And I mean heat with a capital H, it has worn them down. So when you do a workout, let's say it is that 72-degree dew point, and you adjust by 5%, maybe you needed 8%, but regardless, even if you successfully did it with the 5%, that is going to leave more of a mark because you have less blood in your muscles, right? It is going to actually take a little bit longer to recover from that. So by the time you get to your long run on the weekend, your legs are not recovered or as recovered as they normally are in cooler temperatures from the stuff you did during the week. That's another reason it just feels very hard. It doesn't mean that fitness isn't happening. It's just not as clearly felt or observed. And it's certainly not numerically as obvious.
Yeah. Right. And in order to get that fitness only actualizes through the recovery phase. And recovery is so essential when it's hot out. I've been saying in our classes, like sit down before you fall down, and scaling our effort in our strength classes, because it's cumulative.
It is.
We have this one rough run on the weekend, but that does bleed into your week. And if you're not taking your recovery seriously, this can really add up quickly.
Some numerical examples here. So let's say your easy pace, your normal easy pace is a 9-minute per mile pace. Here's what it looks like when we scale for dew point. At a dew point below 55 degrees, remember this is optimal for running, you probably just run your normal 9-minute pace and it would feel pretty good.
Yeah, if your dew point is between 60 and 65, you're running about a 9:10 to 9:15 pace to make that equivalent to your 9-minute mile.
At a dew point, one tick up of 65 to 70%, that becomes roughly 9:15 to 9:35 so that you can adjust for that.
At 70 to 75 degrees, you're probably closer to 9:30 to 9:45. So we're already tacking on 30 to 45 seconds to that easy pace.
Above 75 for that dew point, you could easily be running 9:45, 10, or even slower. All of that is very much to be expected. Just slow the heck down, especially when you're in those 70% and up.
So what's happening inside your body when the dew point is high?
As your body heats up, right, as Henry the Heat Monster is standing beside you, it starts sending more blood to your skin for trying to get it to have the heat escape and cool you down. But because of that, your blood is not delivering oxygen to your muscles, which you need that in order to work super efficiently, right? It's because that's not happening. Guess what happens? Your heart compensates by beating faster. That's why you get a faster heart rate.
Exercise physiologists call this cardiovascular drift. And this is, one of the reasons why you might be in the middle of a run and maintaining the same pace, but all of a sudden your heart rate spikes like 10 to 15 beats per minute and you haven't changed anything. This is the accumulated sort of fatigue of your heart trying to keep up, pumping the blood through to cool you down. This is particularly impactful during prolonged exercise. So as your duration grows, right, you're out there longer, you're working hard, you're going to see this sort of spike in your heart rate, and especially when you're dehydrated.
Yeah, or becoming dehydrated.
So this is definitely a reason to down those electrolytes and stay on top of your water.
If your heart rate is unusually high on a humid day, don't immediately assume, and it probably is not because you've lost fitness. Your body's actually working overtime in order to regulate its temperature. Again, blood at the skin, heart has to beat faster in order to get oxygen to your muscles. So on high dew point days, you always want to train by effort, not ego. Leave it at the door. It has nothing to do with how fit you are or how not fit you are. It has everything to do with external conditions.
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that runners make in running in the high humidity with the high dew point is trying to maintain that normal pace, like trying to force it.
And guess what? Pros and smart runners, they adjust. So if you force your normal pace on a humid day, you are effectively turning an easy run into a moderate run, or a moderate run into a hard or very hard run that are all going to be really hard to recover from by the time you get to your long run. So it all turns into a recovery problem because, like you said, it compounds, right? And then all of a sudden we're stacking some fitness, but on a very, very shaky foundation.
So here are some practical tips to help you make humid running more manageable. First up, run earlier in the day when possible.
We're going to hydrate and replace electrolytes during long runs or whenever you're sweating heavily. I think Coach J-Ro, our in-house RD and nutritionist, would probably say anytime you're over 60 minutes, like having a super concentration on making sure that you are hydrating and replacing those electrolytes.
And I would say not just during and immediately after your runs, but in this time of heat and humidity, you got to be on top of your hydration all the time. We could wear lightweight and moisture-wicking clothing that helps sweat evaporate.
Or no top.
Or no top.
Yeah, I mean, truly, like the more air in your skin, if you feel comfortable doing that, like go for it, because one, you're not going to chafe as much. You're going to listen to the episode before this one on that. But then two, you're going to have more skin open to being able to take some of your body heat off, hopefully, if it's actually going to let you. You're going to look for shaded routes whenever possible, especially on long stuff. You know, like I love the lakefront as much as everyone else, but there are some times that is like 10 to 15 degrees hotter. And that's the last thing you need on top of a high dew point, right? And most importantly, as you start off, adjust your expectations. So everyone slows down. The pros slow down. We want to slow down in order to effectively train and be able to recover and actually use the fitness that we're putting in.
You know, we can't control the weather, and we definitely shouldn't obsess over it, but the runners who improve the most over time aren't the ones who ignore the forecast completely. They're the ones who understand it and train accordingly.